أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فوض أمري إلى الله إن الله بصير بالعباد ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل ونعم المولى ونعم النصير والصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على الرسول المسدد المصطفى الأمجد المحمود الأحمد الذي سمي في السماء بأحمد وفي الأرض بأبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين المنتجبين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا الله وقل رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي أما بعد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في كتاب الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا بني لا تشرك بالله إن الشرك لظلم عظيم صدق الله العلي العظيم زينوا مجالسكم بالصلوات على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل. My respected elders, brothers and sisters in Islam and Iman here in New York or across the globe, wherever you're hearing my voice, Salamun alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Question, who are you trying to please? We've been discussing Islam as a way of living in this life, in this dunya, to get a better akhirah, but also a better world through that. And we've been looking at the Quran in the last couple of nights and how we can live the Quran by means of taking the verses and using them as practical implementations in our life, number one. Number two, we also, before that, were discussing the life and times of Imam Ali alayhi salam. And how is it that by understanding Imam Ali alayhi salam and the Quran, we are actually looking at two sides of the same coin. That is, if we want to see the Quran implemented, you look at the personality of Imam Ali alayhi salam. And if you want to read the Quran, you will get the reflection of the attributes of Imam Ali alayhi salam and Rasulullah within them, the righteous ones that we are supposed to follow. Therefore, building on this tonight, I want us to think about a few things. As we're approaching the conclusion of the month of Ramadan, what is Shahr Ramadan for? And how can we make the most of the remaining nights? And how can we continue after that to be the best version of ourselves? Number two, what is it that we need to download into our brains, and what is it that we need to remove from our brains in order to be on a successful path in life? The next thing I want to look at is, how is it that the Ahlul Bayt lived in a way that was excellent in every aspect, and how can we do that in our lives as well? And what does that require us to be aware of in our lives? And finally, how is it that we can make our lives better through the Quran and Ahlul Bayt here in our community, as well as outside of here, and for those who live in America at large? What is our responsibility, and what can we do to help meet that responsibility? That's our agenda for the brief moments that we are here together. Wherever you are here in New York or across the globe, from the bottom of your heart, send a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli. At the first level, when we look at the Quran al-Majid wa Furqan al-Hamid, you want to look at it as a book of life, a book that is alive. And one thing that the ulama and scholars have said throughout times is, if you really want to feel the Quran, when you hear the Quran al-Majid wa Furqan al-Hamid, feel as though that verse that you are hearing is being revealed on you at that very moment in time that you are hearing it. Do not think that it's being revealed 1400 years ago. Feel as though Allah is revealing that right now at this very moment in time to help the verse come to life to you. Then it speaks in a different way. It speaks in a different environment. The miracle of this book is that it speaks to for 1400 years. It speaks to different generations, but it speaks to 9 billion people on this planet individually. And that's what's amazing about this book. So what is another way you can implement this? Another one is by actually reading the Quran and the stories within the Quran. You see, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows how to, He created insan. He created human beings. So He knows how the mind operates. I'll give you an example. Some scholars, some ulama, as they get bigger and more famous in their speaking, they say, I don't use stories in my majalis, in my lectures. And the idea is that that's something that smaller people do. It's not a big deal. But the reality of the matter is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used stories in the Quran. And Allah is the one who created aql. Allah is the one who created reason. Allah is the one who created the mind. And He knows how the mind appeals, what appeals to the mind. And so, why did I say this to you? The reason I mentioned this to you is, learn from the stories of Nuh, the story of Sulaiman, the story of Musa, the story of Isa, the story of Musa, the story of Rasulullah and the various prophets, and also those people of hikmah within the Quran. So what is it, something that we can learn? Let me give you an example. First point, what is that software that is in your brain that you need to delete, and what is the one that you need to download? For example, if you remember Microsoft and the Windows revolution, they used to have Windows 95, 97, X, Y, and Z. Today, we live in the era of smartphones where there's Apple software updates, Android software updates, and they often say that this new update fixes something that was wrong in the past, and it makes it better, and it allows you to do more things, it gives you more capabilities. Similarly, in our minds that Allah has given us, this amazing brain that Allah has given us that allows us to excel relative to all of the other creation, what is it that I have that I should use more of, that I should optimize, and what is it that perhaps I should delete? And that's where I come to the question I asked at the beginning, which is, who are you trying to please? There's a moment in time, and I want to make this clear. There's a person who's mentioned in the Quran, Luqman al-Hakim, who's a wise individual who has a lot of wisdom. Now, there are a few people who are from within the Islamic context, when Rasulullah and the Ahlul Bayt were asked, the people who emerged who were the most intelligent. Islam tried to get us out of this notion of colorism, of racism, of discrimination. So the people, for example, in the time when Islam was coming about, they came forward and said, oh Bilal is, for example, they would say he's Habashi, he's from Ethiopia, he's dark skinned. But Rasulullah was saying, why are you looking at skin color? Why can you not see beyond that in the human being? Why can you not see that there's an intellectual, a person with a great mind, a great heart, a great human being there? Get beyond the colorism. And it seems that 1400 years on, still human beings, we have not gotten beyond the colorism. And colorism is even within the same ethnicity sometimes, within the same race, the same. It could be the Indian community, they're still going to try to find who has fairer skin. But people don't realize that this is coming from colonialism, which led you to feel like you're inferior because of your color of your skin. And you need to break out of that. The same way, Luqman was one person who was from Ethiopia. He was dark-skinned. But Allah didn't mention that, and Allah didn't find it necessary to mention that. Allah was only interested in his wisdom. And Allah said he was the wise person, and you need to learn from his wisdom. That's what's important. So now come back here. He says at that point in time, my son, la tushrik billah, inna shirka la dhulmun azim. The verse that I recited at the beginning. Ya bunayya la tushrik billah inna shirka la dhulmun azim. So this was a wise individual who always wanted to train his son to give him good guidance, like any father wants to. So at that point in time, he said, Luqman says, I want to give some wisdom to my son. He said, son, let's go on a journey. So they proceeded. He said, yes, father, let's go on this journey. In this journey, there was the father, there was the son, and there was their mule, the donkey, for example. They go on this journey. When they go on this journey, they are proceeding. Luqman, as they start the journey, he says, my son, I want you to sit on the mule and I will walk. You know, the mule, you can't hold that much weight, for example. So he says, my son, you sit there, we'll walk together, I'll walk on the ground, you sit on the mule, and we'll walk together. And we'll go on this journey together. He says, Baba, okay, fine, no problem. So Luqman's son sits on the mule, they begin to proceed on this journey. When eventually they're going in the desert, and they pass by a group of people. When they pass by this group of people, the people begin to see the father and son, and they see the mule, and they begin to talk. They say, what kind of son is this? Look at today's kids. Look at this individual. His father is walking, and he's sitting on the mule very comfortably. What type of child is this of today? What type of person is this? Luqman doesn't say anything to them. Luqman looks at his son. He says, my son, did you hear what they said? He said, yes, Baba, I heard what they said. I said, okay, let's continue. They continue on their journey, and this time they swap. So Luqman says, I'll sit on the mule, on the animal, and you come down and you walk. So son says, yes, very well, Baba, no problem, let's do it. So they switch, and now the father is on the mule and the son is walking down. And eventually, they continue on their journey. When they continue on their journey, they pass by another group of individuals, a new group of people in the desert. And they see the father, son, and the animal. And then when they see this, they say, what type of father is this? What type of zalim is this? What type of oppressor is this? What type of Jabir is this? What type of heartless man is this? That he's making his son walk on the desert that's hot, and he's sitting very comfortably on the mule. Luqman didn't say anything to them. He said to his son, my son, did you hear what they said? He said, yes, Baba, I heard what they said. He said, okay, let's do something. I'll come down, you come down, we'll walk both together and let the mule walk itself. Let's continue on our journey. So they continued on their journey. The narration said they continued on their journey up until the point that there was a new group of people on their journey in the desert. When these people saw them, they started to laugh. They said, what kind of father and son are these? They're both fools. They're both unintelligent. They have a perfectly healthy mule, and they're letting the mule walk by itself, and they're walking on the desert like fools. Someone give them aql. And Luqman didn't say anything to them. He looked at his son. He said, my son, did you hear what they said? He said, yes, Baba, I heard what they said. He said, okay, let's do something, my son. He said, they said, let us both sit on the mule. We'll both sit on the mule. So they both sat on the mule. And they continued on their journey. And when they continued on their journey, they went forward and they found a new group of people. And when they found a new group of people, these people began to shout and scream and yell. They said, animal cruelty. What is going on here? The mule, it has rights too. You, father and son, are both sitting on a mule so comfortably, and you don't have any consideration about the mule, that maybe it has some feelings, maybe it has some pain, maybe it has some hurt. Luqman heard, he said, my son, he didn't say anything to them. He said, my son, did you hear them? He said, yes, yes, Baba. He said, let's both get down. They got down. It was just a few more steps. They got to where they were trying to get to. They were trying to get by the river. They came to the conclusion of their journey. He said, my son, did you notice something? He said, what is it, Baba? Yes. He said that on our journey, we tried to sit on the mule one at a time, and people had something to say. We got off the mule, people had something to say. We both got on the mule, some people had something to say. Did you notice that? He said, yes, Baba, I noticed that. He said, I want you to remember something, my son. No matter what you do and no matter how you try, you can never please the people. So dedicate your life to only one thing. Please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is it. The principle of that Luqman is teaching you and I is, if you try to go after trying to please people, you will be neither here nor there. There will always be someone who will come after you with criticism. There will always be somebody who will come after you to break you down. There will always be somebody who will try to find some fault in the good that you're doing. The principle is, delete from your software, delete from your mindset, log kya kahenge? What are people going to say? This mindset will ruin you. It will ruin your deen and it will ruin your dunya as well. And the reason I say this is, you will never be able to do, if you constantly think, what are people going to say? Then someone could have said to Nuh, what are people going to say? Nuh, why are you propagating for 950 years? What are you going to do? Why are you doing this? You could have said this to Ibrahim alayhi salam. Ibrahim is telling his people in the Quran, this kawkab, hadha Rabbi. Ibrahim, you know of all people that this star is not your Lord. Why are you telling people this? Ibrahim would perhaps tell us, wait a second. And then the star begins to decline. And when the star begins to decline, he says, this cannot be my Rabb, this cannot be my Lord. The one that declines, no. My Lord is the east of the west, the ones who created everything. So he's inviting people to break their shackles of thinking and become free, to realize that Allah is Jalla Jalaluhu, Allah is Azza wa Jal, Allah is the creator of the heavens and the earth. So he's breaking those shackles. So someone could say, Ibrahim, why are you wasting your time? You would say, no. You would say that to Musa alayhi salam, Isa. The principle is, if this principle was beneficial, what are people going to say? People will find some problems with the best of people. And they did. They tried to find something wrong with Rasulullah. They tried to find something with Amir al-Mu'mineen. Do you know what the riwayat say about Imam Ali alayhi salam? After Rasulullah passed away, they said, who's going to be the Khalifa? People said, Ali must be the Khalifa. Because he's the one who Rasulullah himself said, he said, Ana wa Ali min Nurin Wahid. Ali and I were from the same Nur. He says, for example, Ya Ali anta minni bimanzilati Haruna min Musa, illa annahu la nabiyya ba'di. Oh Ali, you are to me like Aaron was to Moses. And so many other narrations that he has said, that I am Madinatul Ilm wa Aliyun babuha. He said all of these different traditions. But then they said, Ali has a couple of problems. What problems does Ali have? They said there's two problems. Number one, he's too young. You didn't think he was too young in Badr. You didn't think he was too young in Uhud. You didn't think he was too young in Khandaq and Khaybar when he brought victory when nobody was there to bring victory to the Muslims. You didn't say he's a kid at that time, but now you remembered he's too young when he's 33. He's roughly 30 years old. So now he's too young. 33 is too young. Okay, mashallah. 25, 24, 23, he's bringing all the victories, he's not too young. Okay. And then the second, I don't know where they brought this one from, but they did. They said he smiles too much. La ilaha illallah. This is when you have no logic, when you have no wisdom, when you have no reason. You try to find the strangest things. They said he was too pleasant demeanored. He was too, they say hasmuk. He was very pleasant in his demeanor. La ilaha illallah. What are you supposed to be as a leader? You're supposed to be someone? Look at all the politicians you have around America. Even if they're not a good person, they try to smile to show they're a good person. But that idea or that mentality is, when you have no substance, you have to bring something out of nowhere. The same is true with insan. You can never make people satisfied. Dedicate yourself, as Luqman says, to helping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's cause, to fight for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's will. Do not care what the people say. The same is true with Imam Ali alayhi salam. Imam Ali, 25 years when his right was taken, they could have said that, Imam Ali, why are you helping the enemy? Why are you helping people who took your right? And every time, the second Khalifa would say, at least 80 times on the record, he said, Lawla Ali la halak al-Umar. If Ali was not there, I would have vanished. Because Ali helped me whenever I needed the answers. But somebody could say, oh, Ali, you're showing yourself as weak. But that's in the people's eyes. Imam Ali doesn't care about what's in the people's eyes, unless it's about justice and humanity. He's not trying to please people. He's trying to please Allah. And the beautiful thing about it is, when you try to please Allah, Allah will put the love of the people in your heart. And that's what's amazing about the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt. Such that you will get, if you go after Allah's cause, you will get the akhirah and you will get this dunya. But the other way is not guaranteed at all. In fact, it's the opposite. What do we learn from Karbala? Umar ibn Sa'ad, he was wanting right. He was wanting power. He was wanting the land of modern day Tehran area to be the governor there. So he tried to please Yazid. And in that moment, he lost the akhirah, and subhanallah, he lost the dunya also, because he never got right. He was expecting to get the governorship of right, and he didn't get that, nor did he get the akhirah. He lost in both places. Principle: if you do something for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you may get here and there. But if you do just for here, you may lose here and you may lose there. And it's very important to keep these principles in mind when you come forward. Further example in this, Imam Sajjad himself says, in Sham, he says, after there was this one person who was a Maulana, Sheikh, whatever you want to call, Mullah, who was paid by Yazid. And he began to recite the fadail and the merits of Yazid and Umayyah, Banu Umayyah. After he spoke, Imam Sajjad says, do I have the permission to go, not on this mimbar, but on these pieces of wood? Meaning that this is not a mimbar, because a mimbar is where you talk about Allah, the Quran, Ahlul Bayt, and the fadail of Rasulullah and Ahlul Bayt. That is what is good for you and humanity and society at large. A mimbar is not a place where you start reading the fadail of the people who are the enemies of the Quran and Ahlul Bayt and the likes. So he began to recite this fadail. But he said a statement. He said, you have sold the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the pleasure of the people. He told that Maulana, quote unquote, that you wanted people to become happy, but in that process, you sold the happiness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's very important for us to remember this, that when we come to this understanding, only seek the radha of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There was one during Banu Umayyah, they always tried to buy people left, right, and center. So one of the rulers at the time, there was a person who was in the middle. He was generally a good person, but he said, how can I buy this person over? So he said, look, let me offer him 3 things. And he chooses which one that he takes. He says, number 1, you can become the tutor of my children. Now the zalim, this oppressor, is telling this man who's trying to choose between right and wrong and trying to do the right thing. So he says, you can, number 1, either you can become the tutor of my children. He said, one option, okay. He says, number 2, you can become a judge in my court. You can become a judge. So, okay. Number 3, you can just come to eat dinner at my home once. He said, these are your options. So this man thought to himself, he said, I don't want to be close to this person. He's a zalim, he's a tyrant, he's a oppressor. So, but I have to pick one of these 3, otherwise he'll kill me. That's what they do. They'll poison me or they'll behead me. You can't say no to the ruler. So he said, should I become the tutor of his children? He said, I don't want to be that close to him. It's too close. He said that he'll ask them, I make some mistake, some slip up, he doesn't like something, he'll have my head. So no. Number 2, judge. Should I be a judge? Judge is supposed to be a vehicle to do justice in the world. And then if I'm working under him, then I'll have to do dhulm, and then I'll lose this dunya and the akhirah. I don't want to do this. He said, number 3, It seems like the least evil. I just have one meal at his house. I'll just eat dinner with him. Then after that, I'll never see him again. Fine, I'll get him off my case. So he said, I'll do this one. So he sent the message back. He said, I will come to dinner to your home. So the ruler said, okay, very well. So he told his chef, I want you to cook a very special meal for this guest of ours. So he says, very well. So he gets there on the day of this banquet dinner. So he comes there. And then he says, here, welcome. Now when this man, the guest came, he wanted to eat very humbly. And there are thousands of stories like this. I'm just sharing one of them that Banu Umayyah did during that time. And so he said that he was going to eat very comfortable, very little, not too much, very humbly. And he said that then I'm just going to leave after that. So then he had all these delicacies, these delicious foods. They came one after the other. He said, try this one and try this one and try this one. He said, okay, he tried a little bit of each one. Then he told his chef, make something that he will never forget. And so he went, the chef began to make some amazing delicacy from the most luxurious ingredients and all the best things, up until the point in time where he sent this out from the kitchen and he said, give this to the table, the chef says. He says he will never leave this table. At that point in time, when he sent the food out, the ruler said, eat this, try this. He ate it, he ate it, he ate it. Eventually, he became what we now call, he got a food coma. He got food drunk. He became drunk with overeating. He was so enamored. Eventually, when he got his consciousness back, he went home. And remember the statement of the chef. He said, he'll never leave this table. When he left, after 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, he thought to himself, that dinner was amazing. It was life-changing. So he sent a message. He said, how bad can it be to tutor his children? So he sent a message. He said, now I want to tutor your kids. You offered that. I think I'll tutor your kids. So he began to tutor them, and he began to get money there and stipend there and all of the things that were there. And he began to benefit. And then eventually, at some point in time, when this progressed further, he said, after a few days of tutoring, he said, what's the big deal? I'll become a judge. Maybe I'll just give some verdicts and I'll help a few people out and I'll get some more benefits. So he said, you know that offer that you gave me to be judge? He said, I'll take it. So he took it. And one after the other, he began to slowly do injustice in his judgments. Up until a point in time emerged where he himself says that I went to the Baytul Mal. Now at that time, much like today, they would write a check. So the ruler would write a check and you would go to the public treasury and cash it out. So he got his check from the ruler and he took this. This is Banu Umayyah politics being played, right? So this man who was generally sincere, how tables turn in a night. So he said he brought this check and he came to the accountant on the other side, the bookkeeper. He said, give me my money, give me my money. He gave it. He said, hold on a second. The way you are asking for money, it's as if you sold some big mountain of treasure and you're supposed to get your money right away. Baba, hold on a second. What are you in a rush for? Thinking that maybe he's just gotten some small measly check. And he said, no, I've sold something much more valuable. He said, you sold something much more valuable? What did you sell more valuable than a mountain of gold? He said, I sold something much more valuable. He said, I sold my akhirah. I sold my iman. So give me my money. Meaning what? The slope going towards the wrong direction can be a very slippery slope. But what is beautiful and is in our hands is the ability to change ourselves in a moment. If you tie this narration with the narration of Luqman, you will realize that if you simply try to please the people, you can go down the wrong path and you can become miserable in that. That person began to hate themselves, that he sold everything. You know, sometimes you get into the mirror, you look in the mirror, you can't even respect yourself because of what's happened. And at that point in time, he realized that he had done something wrong. Hur realized he did something wrong, but Hur changed on the plains of Karbala. Similarly, you and I can be in the same boat, but through Shahr Ramadan, through these nights, the nights that are remaining, and the nights that are completing, we can use these nights to ask Allah, give us those traits that are the best for us. Ya Allah, make us your agents on earth so we can do your work on earth. And Ya Allah, give us the patience, the perseverance to be able to fight in your cause. Ya Allah, allow there to be the akhlaq of the Ahlul Bayt throughout our community centers and our Imam Bargahs and our centers and our masajids. So that when people come here, they really say that Islam is here. They really say that the love of the Ahlul Bayt is here. The akhlaq of the Ahlul Bayt is here. And through that, we build up. The first baseline is, this must feel like a safe space where people can feel comfortable, number one. And then number two, we have programs on science in Islam, programs on economics in Islam, programs on art in Islam, programs on ethics in Islam, programs on Islam and philosophy in Islam, programs on the depth of Islam that we often have not had the time to discuss. But today, there is an appetite for that. Today, there is a movement for that. And today, inshallah, this generation and this group of people before me and those online are the ones who can make this happen. And we pray that that is what we do, and that is what we can make happen. But the first principle is, do not be primarily focused with what people are concerned with. Concern yourself with the will of Allah, the will of the Quran, the will of the Ahlul Bayt, and then the will of the people will follow, inshallah. Wa sallallahu ala rasulil kareem wa ala ahli bayt al-tayyibin al-tahirin. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا خديجة الكبرى، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا حسن والحسين سيد الشباب أهل الجنة، وعلي بن الحسين زين العابدين، ومحمد بن علي الباكر، وجعفر بن محمد الصادق، وموسى بن جعفر الكاظم، وعلي بن موسى الرضا، ومحمد بن علي الجواد التكي، وعلي بن محمد الهادي النكي، والحسن بن علي العسكري. السلام عليك يا حجة بن الحسن القائم المنتظر المهدي، يا صاحب العصر والزمان، أجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله تعالى مخرجك. السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله